Many times we're hired by corporations to go overseas and do training for them in the country that they are doing business in. And we call them mobile training units. So far, we've been to 25 countries and on 5 continents. When we go to these places, we have to be very careful that we teach in a style that is indigenous to the country. As an example, if we go to Bogota, the majority of attacks there are done with motorcycles, and so we have to be very careful that our training includes that. Or in other countries, motorcycle attacks are unheard of. So mobile training units are harder to do because we have to design our program to meet the needs of the country that we're in. Obviously, there are some attacks that are easier to defend against than others. The easiest to defend against would be the stationary vehicle where they block the road and they don't block the road behind them. Because you're sitting in let's say a non-armored car, so you're sitting in a 4,000-pound projectile. At 10 miles an hour, in a 4,000-pound car, you've developed 160,000 foot-pounds of energy. So you can move this vehicle out of your way very easily. So it is the easiest type of attack to break. There's a situation like that where they have blocked the road in front of you, and you have a lot of options to you. You can ramp forward, you can go backwards and do the J-turn. If they left enough room, you can drive around them. That is the easiest attack to protect against. Without a doubt, the hardest is to attack with rockets. If the person's good, there's no way to defend against it. But the history says so far they haven't been good. The only person that's been killed with a rocket attack has been Somoza. The other is very difficult to protect against is the roadside bomb, where they put a bomb alongside the road, and as the car drives by, they set the bomb off. That's very difficult to protect against. Now, again, though, they've only been successful once or twice with that, and that's when they use electronic devices to set the bomb off. The reason why those two are hard to protect against is because they go against the philosophy of everything that we've been trained for. We've been trained to take on cars coming from us from the front, from the back, from the side. We are not trained to be looking for an ambush. We are trained that once the ambush happens, to be able to get out of it. And our training now needs to center on not only that, but how do I recognize this ambush happening, not 5 seconds, not 10 seconds, 30 seconds to a minute before it's about to happen. And that's what we're going to have to center our training on in the future.
There are 5 fatal mistakes that the average driver in a protective detail will make. First one is becoming complacent. The driver will become complacent over a period of time, driving the same route day after day, picking the principal up, dropping him off at the office, picking him up at the office, and dropping him back off at his residence. Same routine, time after time, drives a person into complacency. They lose the awareness, they lose their ability to retain the correct driving position, giving them the ability to react to a situation. Second one is not reacting. Not reacting to a situation. This is exactly what the terrorists want you to do. And we're talking about terrorists from anywhere from the person that wants your gold Rolex and chain to the person that wants to take or kill the principal. Could be someone that just wants to embarrass the principal. Nevertheless, they want you to not react. That's exactly what would happen. Then you're playing into their hands. We want you to do something, even if it's not with the textbook, some type of a reaction. Now, the third point, the third most fatal mistake that we seem to run into is not allowing ourselves an exit point. When we're moving through traffic with the principal, we have to be aware constantly of our surroundings. Leave ourselves an exit point. In traffic pulling up to a stoplight with a vehicle in front of us, We want to maintain the distance behind the vehicle in front of us, watching to make sure that we have visual contact with the two tires in front of the vehicle in front of us, allowing us sufficient room to go to the left or to the right in case of a vehicle ambush or drive-by, or from someone just walking up to the vehicle. So never allow yourself to get boxed in. Always leave some room for an exit point. Vehicle location. Vehicle location during routes, primary and alternate routes to and from the residence of the principal, to his place of employment, noting all of your safe havens and escape areas, and also vehicle location as far as the equipment involved in the vehicle. If you've just taken off from the principal's home, perhaps you had to back out of a drive situation and put the vehicle from reverse into drive, knowing that the vehicle is in a overdrive gear or it's in low gear, so that if you have to make an evasive maneuver, you'll know how many points you have to shift up. Skills. It's probably the most fatal mistake we run into, is that the driver does not have the basic skills. We have to have the advanced training to be able to do these maneuvers. We have to know and attend the schools, we have to gain something from the courses, and be able to do these maneuvers with the vehicle. Many times, a corporate driver will wind up being an old employee, someone that's been around the office who's not really effective anymore in a certain area, so they bring him up, and to keep him on board, well, we'll make him the CEO's driver. Okay, the CEO's driver winds up being a gentleman in his late 50s, early 60s. Nothing against age, but sometimes they're not quite as effective as younger people. And without any training, they become quite ineffective in a hostile situation. And this is what we have to have, is the basic training, basic knowledge, and being able to make the decisions and carry them out in order to save someone's life. So those are the 5 basic fatal mistakes that we run into.
Most vehicle attacks happen in the morning on the way to work. If you took data and looked at data over, let's say, 15 years, and the predominant time would be the morning, the predominant mode would be automobiles, and the predominant place would be near the home. But if you looked at data over the last year or two, there's a switch happening. There's now starting to attack on the way back from work, but still near the place of work and in the evening. The question obviously should be, why? The answer is real easy. Any security book, manual, seminar you go to, they always say, change your routes. Well, that's nice, but it's pretty hard to change the routes within a block or so of your home. It's pretty hard, if not impossible, to change the routes a block or so from where you work. So you can change your routes once you leave this area, but it's pretty hard to do so when you're in the area. Why the morning and why at night? In the morning is prevalent because executives didn't get to be executives by showing up to work late. So if you say to an executive, okay, vary your times in the morning, his idea of varying his time is being 15 or 20 minutes late. Well, that means the terrorist had to sit there for an extra 15 minutes. So you're not going to get many of them to change their time in the morning. So therefore, if you look at predictability, it's pretty easy to predict where this guy's going to be in the morning and where he's going to be in the morning. First, we have to understand that once an attack starts, the odds are in the favor of the terrorist. There's no way you can get around that. Once the attack has started, your choices and your options become less. The key is not panicking. If we look after ambush after ambush after ambush, and let's take skill out of the picture, and just look at what happened, you will find that in most cases, the driver and the people inside the automobile panicked. Now, what is panicking? Panicking is the absence of training. If a person is trained to react, they won't panic. And how do we react? We react through conditioned response, and we respond through training. So If we can have a person constantly go over and over and over a particular subject, a particular incident, they can usually drive their way out of it. Once the attack happens, it's pretty hard to drive out of it once they panic. Again, we've got to get back to time and distance. If you sit there for 5 seconds contemplating what you're going to do, it's over. And in 5 seconds, a good driver can have that car back a good distance, spun around, and off, all in 5 seconds. But if it took them 5 seconds to recover from the shock, it's over. So the one thing you can do to protect yourself is be cool and don't panic. There's a lot of controversy about the type of braking you should use, whether it's threshold braking, pump braking, or locking the brakes. What I'd like to do is just go over a scientific analysis of it. And I got to explain for clarity that this isn't my opinion how things should be done. This is Sir Isaac Newton's idea of how things should be done. So the first thing we've got to understand is what's the difference between threshold braking and locking the brakes. The difference is that in threshold braking, you press your foot on the brake pedal to 80% of the wheel rolling. Lock brakes, you just press your foot as hard as your little foot will press until the wheels lock up. The issue that we have to understand is what is the difference between the coefficient of friction of threshold braking and locking the brakes. The difference of the coefficient of friction is roughly about 0.15. What does that mean? That means, yes, you will stop quicker with threshold braking. But we have to ask the question is, how quick can you find threshold braking? The answer is really simple. At 40 miles an hour, you would have to find threshold braking in 0.22 seconds. I'm not too sure if there is any person that can do that. Okay. The next issue is that don't get confused. We are not saying that the best way to stop a car is by modulating the brake pedal. What we're saying is that if you decide to educate yourself and to learn how to stop a car quickly, you can never ever leave out the fact that the wheels will lock up, and you must learn how to unlock the wheels so you can regain your steering. Ambush after ambush after ambush. The drivers put their foot on the brake pedal, locked up the wheels, and crashed into what it was that they were trying to avoid. The point that we want to make is if you ever lock up those wheels, get your foot off the brake so you can regain your steering. It cannot be stressed how important that issue is. Okay, what I want you to focus on are these two front tires. I want you to notice how they're turned, but the car still keeps on going straight.
Let's take a look and see how much we missed this by. As we can see by the tire marks here in front of us, the marks are extremely wide because the tires turned completely sideways. It continued all the way through until it made contact with the cone, ran over the cones, through the obstacle. Had we been using the other method that we teach here in the school, we would have been able not only to avoid the obstacle, but would have been able to bring the vehicle to a halt in a much shorter distance. Hard braking combines a number of things. Basically, what we want to do is brake the vehicle as quickly and as rapidly to a complete stop, maintaining steering control. We utilize a maneuver called the brake and turn, where we come through up to 50 miles an hour and stop the vehicle very, very quickly, using rapid pumping motions of the brake and optimizing the steering. Very, very easy to turn an understeering car into an oversteering car when you're braking, especially when you're trying to turn. So we have to feel the way the car is going. If we're going a little bit too far, then we can compensate for it. So you have to develop the feel for the car. In braking and pumping the brakes, we want to violently hit the brake immediately, as soon as we have recognition. And that will drop a tremendous amount of speed off the vehicle. approximately 8 to 10 miles per hour immediately off the vehicle. Then we want to continue with a pumping motion and try and get at least 5 good hits in on the brakes. We can't do it by patting the brake lightly. We have to become very violent with it. When we're doing this, we're loading the vehicle up. All of the weight is transferring to the front. So there's a tremendous amount of weight on the front tires as this is going on. What's going to happen when we apply the brake is that weight transferring forward is going to lock the front wheels. They will slide. When we come off the brake, they will rotate as the momentum carries the vehicle forward. So what we're trying to do is optimize the braking, which is approximately 85% brake and 15% turn. The ABS braking system, the anti-lock braking system, does this for us automatically through computers, etc. Braking technique, pumping the brakes. As we feel the vehicle start to slide, we come off the brake. We're not going to have time to make a decision as to when this is happening. So we want to brake, hit the brake as hard as possible and as rapidly as possible. So we want to hit the brake and continue braking until the vehicle comes to a stop.
Now, all this white residue here, and if you can see, I can pick it up and take it right off. This white residue is the concrete that the tire was sliding over. So when the tire was stationary, this is the only part of the tire that was making contact with the road, and this white residue is the concrete that it picked up. So we have roughly a 4,000-pound car riding on 4 patches that are roughly 21 square inches, and that's the only thing that this car is riding on, are those 4 patches. Okay, now what makes this tire patch bigger or smaller depends a great deal on the tire pressure. And it's very important that you put in the proper amount of air in a tire. What is the proper amount of air? It's written right on the side of every tire. If you look on the side of this tire, it would say 36 psi. And that's what, at minimum, you should have in this tire. The less tire pressure you have, the smaller this patch would be. So you have to have the right amount of tire pressure in the tire in order for the tire to stop efficiently.
If we find ourselves in a situation that does not allow us to continue on, the road passage to the front has been blocked, we're in an ambush situation, we realize that we have got to get out either to the right, drive around them, or make an exit to the rear. We have decided to make a J-turn to the rear. Immediately want to apply the brakes as hard as we can and as violently as we can, maintaining control at a good 3 and 9 hand position, stopping the vehicle and shifting from drive into reverse. It should be 2 positive, distinct movements from drive to neutral, neutral into reverse. This is where we want to relate back to knowing where the vehicle is at all times, where our equipment is located, so that we can do these maneuvers without having to take our eyes off and looking at the specific piece of equipment to find out where we're at. Once we're in reverse, we check the mirror 1 time, make sure nothing has blocked our exit to the rear, and accelerate as rapidly as possible, maintaining good traction without excessive wheel spin. If we're sitting there spinning our tires in reverse, they can come up and get us. So we want to do it as rapidly as possible, noting that if we are accelerating too rapidly and smoking the tires and sitting there, lightly off the accelerator till we gain adhesion once again and continue back. As we're going back, we come into the palm down, thumb down position with the left hand underneath the right hand in approximately 4 o'clock position. As we're coming back, we've gained sufficient momentum and speed. We come off the accelerator, turn the wheel as rapidly as you can and as violently as we can. We like to tell folks to try and throw the steering wheel out the window. So we want to be very aggressive with this maneuver. If we're very slow with it, we'll have a very slow, wide turn that's going to take us out into the cornfields. So we want to do it as rapidly as possible. Throw the steering wheel out the window. And as the vehicle starts to come back around, we gain approximately 90 degrees from our beginning position. We want to take our right hand and drop it into any forward gear. Slowly just tap it into any forward gear. And as we continue coming around, lightly on the accelerator to avoid excessive wheel spin, and our vehicle straightens itself right up. There are many mistakes that the average driver without some skill will make trying to attempt this maneuver. First of all is not knowing where reverse is at. Being in low gear instead of in overdrive if he has a 3-speed automatic transmission. Then he finds himself fumbling, looking for a reverse gear, sometimes putting it in park. If you put it in park, he's got you. If you wind up in neutral, you're sitting there revving the engine, he's got you. So you're at the mercy of the terrorist. Okay. Another very common mistake is not checking your mirror for your exit point. If someone has blocked your front, and you start to back up and there's a tractor-trailer truck or a cement truck or something behind you, you're not going to go anywhere. So make sure that you can do this maneuver, otherwise you have to go to an alternate. Another very common mistake would be not coming off the accelerator. Okay, it's very important to come off the accelerator. It takes the momentum off the vehicle momentarily. Turning the wheel is another very common mistake. People do not turn the wheel rapidly enough. Turn it too slow and the car is going to make just a big U-turn. So we want to do it very rapidly to keep us from going out into the ditch with the vehicle. Another very common mistake is not shifting at the correct time and shifting too late. And that puts our vehicle into a spin again. The rear wheels will start to spin more. Another very common mistake is coming on the accelerator too hard. Once the vehicle has started to come around, the vehicle starts to straighten out. Hitting the accelerator too rapidly, just jamming on the accelerator, creates excessive wheel spin. You lose traction, and your vehicle is just sitting there. Once again, that gives the terrorist time to react. Once he sees that you are going to try and avoid him, they'll be coming after you. So you need to get out of there as quickly as possible and avoid wheel spin. Let's look a little bit into the bootlegger. Our roadway and we have an ambush site. The vehicle is pulled in front of us. We know it's an ambush because the guns are pointing at us. We've got a good distance here once we recognize it. Okay, in the bootlegger, remember we're doing a forward 180. We're traveling towards the obstacle or the ambush. Once we get our speed reduced down to approximately 25 miles per hour, we want to apply the emergency brake hard. It has to be able to lock the rear wheels. At this point, we've locked the rear wheels. The vehicle starts to continue forward. When you hear the squeal, you turn the wheel, turn it hard, you keep the emergency brake on until you're pointed in the direction that you want to go. Once you reach that, come off the emergency brake, lightly on the gas, and accelerate out. Very simple maneuver. Some of the most common mistakes used in the bootlegger turn would be applying the emergency brake too fast a speed. This could possibly cause permanent damage to the vehicle, disabling the vehicle and leaving you stranded. And slide further into the attack situation than you want to be. So we want to reduce our speed down to approximately 25 miles per hour with the foot brake, then apply the emergency brake. One of the other common mistakes is turning the wheel too hard. Turning the wheel too hard and having the vehicle spin too abruptly. Okay. Utilizing too much gas and acceleration when you're coming out of the braking situation. Provides too much wheel spin and can possibly lose control, turning an understeering vehicle into an oversteering vehicle very, very rapidly. And another very common mistake would be to come off of the emergency brake too soon. And your vehicle is going to go forward whichever way the front wheels are pointed as soon as you come off the emergency brake. So make sure the vehicle is pointed in the direction that you want it to go before you come off the emergency brake. And those are the basic items that most people have difficulty with.
Get out of there!
Once we have found ourselves in a situation where there's no other way out, ramming is definitely the way to go. It isn't going to take, we don't have time to sit and make decisions about it. If there's no way out to do a reverse out, we can't drive around, drive through, we've got to ram. So it has to be done instantaneously. And instead of miles per hour, and it's now seconds and feet per second. So we have to do it very, very rapidly, very quickly, make the decision, and then go into the process. Now, how are we going to go about this? Normal procedure for ramming is to pick a spot on the vehicle to hit. And we are going to, first of all, remember that we are not going to hit the vehicle and smack it out of the way. What we're going to do is more of a bulldozer effect. We're going to push it out of the way. So we don't want to give ourselves away to the aggressors, to the people that are assaulting us. We want them to think that since we have no other way out, that we're going to come to a stop and give up. This would be what normal people would do anyway. Okay, we're going to drive up and approach it to a point where we are approximately 1 to 2 car lengths away. Decreasing speed, then as we get approximately 2 car lengths away, abruptly apply the brakes. As the vehicle comes back up, the front bumper rises. After we have found a contact point on the vehicle that we want to ram, then we're going to ram the vehicle, move it out of the way, disturbing everyone and everything that is here at the ambush site. Okay. The vehicle itself sitting there, we want to hit that axle. At the path of least resistance. This being the rear of the vehicle, we'll have less weight on it, so it'll be easier to break it loose. If we have the option, we have the time to make that choice, we want to hit it to the rear if possible. Okay. It can be done on the front, but it has more weight, which provides more traction at that point. We want to hit this through the axle, not into the bumper area or fender area or into the side panel area. This is solid. It will not absorb the shock into the vehicle. If you hit it here on the axle, it's going to force that vehicle around. And in doing so, it's going to get all of your people that are shooting at you from behind there, providing cover for them. It's going to move it out of the way. Now, the point with our vehicle that we want to hit this target point at will be with our axle. That's the path of the strongest point on our vehicle. So we want to line it up as the front bumper rises. We want to shift it into the lowest gear, accelerate as rapidly as possible, hitting right on the target, right on the axle, maintaining good steering control, the left hand, holding the hand down on the gear shift lever with the right, accelerating through the obstacle, and continue on the way. Right on through. Maintaining good arm control. We don't want to lock our arm. It will disturb that steering wheel somewhat and could possibly hurt you. The reason we keep the gear shift lever depressed with the right hand is so that on impact, the gear shift lever does not pop up into neutral and you're just left sitting there. We want to accelerate as rapidly as possible all the way to the floor through the obstacle. We don't want to make contact at this point and let off the accelerator. We want to accelerate all the way through it. Okay. As we're coming through, if for some reason this vehicle, when we make contact and it's sliding along the side of our vehicle, hooks up somehow, all we have to do is maintain acceleration and just shake the wheel. And as we do so, it will vibrate that other car loose and continue on. At all costs, we do not want to stop. We do not want to stop. We want to continue on and get through the exercise.
Let's go out to the track and put all this into an application.
As we said before, it was extremely good technique. As we brought it in, kept it approximately 1 car length away, full acceleration all the way through, and did not turn the wheel away. Made impact with the car, All we can see here are a few minor scratches, a little bit of the paint from the vehicle. The headlight is still intact. The car is in extremely good condition. No damage whatsoever. Very, very good Ram.
Okay, 3 and 9 hand position. Okay, come down a little bit more. Okay, I want you to hold it firmly now. Take your thumbs. I don't want you to wrap your thumbs around it. Thumbs up. Okay? Very good. Okay, if we make contact with the vehicle and it were to jerk the wheel and you had your thumbs wrapped around it, you could very possibly break your thumb or your wrist. Okay?
Oh.
So your thumb goes up, you hold it firmly with your hand, just like that. Okay? All right. You've got to stop about 1 car length from it. As the fender starts, the bumper starts to come up, shift down, hold the steering or the gear shift lever and accelerate rapidly. Okay?
Stop.
Stop.
Go down.
Shift. Gas. Okay?
Stop, shift, gas.
All right. And I'll talk you through it. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Let's go. Okay. Stop. Okay. Shift. Hold it. Accelerate. All the way through. Hold it. All the way down. Wheel. That's good. All right. Okay. What did we do? Can you think of anything that we did that was incorrect?
Yeah, I didn't keep my foot on the gas.
Correct.
And I didn't keep going.
You did once you made contact. Okay, you have it's a natural tendency. You're making contact with the vehicle. It's totally 100% against everything you've ever learned. Okay, so what we're doing is going against everything that we've learned in the past and forcing yourself to do something different. Okay, so what you did, you came back up to 2 hands on the wheel, took your hand off of this. The reason we want you to hold that down, that is frequently, on impact, it can throw the gear shift lever up into neutral.
Oh.
So you'd be sitting there,
Okay.
and then they've got you. Okay. If you had accelerated all the way through it, you let off the accelerator once you stepped on it before we made impact, and that's natural. Okay, so what you need to do is accelerate all the way through it, and maintain it. But you did very well. We got it out of the way.
Well,
Nobody shot us, so we're doing
That's
all right.
true.
Okay, let's swing back
Okay.
around. You want to try it again? What was right was that you didn't back off completely, that you did something. Even though it was not textbook, it was not by the book. You did something, and that was enough to save your life. Instead of sitting there and freezing and not doing anything, and just accepting rounds, you got through the obstacle, you saved your life, you saved the principal's life. You reacted. That's exactly what they don't expect you to do. Okay? All right, one more time now. We're going to brake, shift, hold, and accelerate. Okay?
Okay.
All right, you ready? Okay, I'll tell you again. When to stop and when to accelerate. Okay? Okay, go ahead on up. Okay, stop. Shift. Accelerate. Hold it. Go. Accelerate. 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 Good. You're afraid of the gas.
Yes.
Upon impact, or just prior to impact, people have a tendency, and it's normal, because of the noise involved, because of the possible impact, the possible feeling that they're going to receive from the impact, to let off the accelerator. So we have to fight that tendency. We have to hit it as straight on as we can and move the vehicle out of the way. They're afraid of the noise. They're afraid of the impact. So they have a tendency to veer off. If you veer off from the target area, you're going to hit back in the fender. The fender is going to absorb the force. Once that is absorbed, you've lost the power to move it out of the way. Much greater tendency at this point for it to hang up on your vehicle, either in the trim or the wheel well or something along that line, that will hold that vehicle to you and slow you down. So the vehicle is not going to move as violently, you're not going to create as much of a disturbance with the assailants, and you may not move the vehicle out. In a 2-vehicle Ram, a multi-vehicle Ram, going down the highway, We realize that we have an ambush in front of us. No path to get around. The area to the back of us has been blocked. We have no alternative at this point but to ram. There's no excess force to drive around. The road is completely blocked. Now, how would we approach this? Okay, we're looking for the path of least resistance. We cannot get in here to use this axle. Can't use this area because it's going to put us between the wall or whatever we have along this area, telephone poles, pedestrians, whatever may be in this area. So we want to find the path of least resistance. At this point, it's going to be here. We're going to go between the two vehicles, hitting them dead center, hitting the area right here in the center, dividing our vehicle so that the center of our vehicle will go through the area directly in between these two. So, in actuality, what's going to happen is our axle area from our two front wheels is going to basically hit right there at that point on those two. Pushing them to the side, opening this up, and driving right through. Okay, so anyone that's in the ambush area, in the barricade area, they will be disturbed. They will be pretty much confused as we plow through. Basically, excuse me, the same situation is going to apply to this also. We're going to come over, align ourselves up, come to a halt between 1 and 2 car lengths from the barricade. As we abruptly come to a halt, the front end of the car is going to come up from braking. As it does, put it into the lowest gear possible, accelerate as rapidly as possible, holding the wheel hard with our our left hand, gear shift selector with our right hand, and accelerate through the barricade using the same principle. Maintaining steering control, maintaining the accelerator all the way to the floor, and go directly through it. Once again, as with the other single car ram, we want to remember that the same techniques apply. We want to maintain good, firm steering control. The hand holding the gear shift lever down. Accelerating as rapidly as possible, not letting off the accelerator all the way through the ram. You don't want to let up in any way. If either vehicle becomes hung on the side of yours, simply take the steering wheel while it's still under full acceleration and just jerk it violently. It'll shake the other car completely off. Just continue going. The important thing to remember is not to stop. Don't freeze. Do something. Okay, we can see the obvious damage that was done to both vehicles. We moved them out of the way. We were able to proceed through them. Even though they got hung on the side, we were able to shake them free. Look back at our vehicle. How far could we have kept on going? We could have gone on indefinitely. No damage was done to the vehicle. Headlights are still intact, body's still intact, absolutely perfect. I wish I could find one just like this brand new. I'd buy it today. All right, here we see our vehicle had come to a stop here, letting the terrorist think that he was giving up, coming to a complete halt. He went through the proper procedures, got on the accelerator, held the steering wheel firmly, and went through the obstacle. The vehicle laid a strip of rubber all the way through. You can see where it made contact. At this point, it made a variance in the way the tire was skidding or spinning, and he continued right through, shaking the vehicles loose. It was an excellent run. Very, very good run. The third technique that we're going to discuss in ramming is a tactical ram or a moving ram. Okay, and as we're driving down the highway, if we notice that a vehicle is starting to pass us, trying to become aggressive and get in between us and the principal, or if we're by ourselves, he's trying to move us off the road. One thing that we want to remember is that we have the ability to move him out of our way. Okay, as he starts to pass us, and his vehicle gets up next to us, When his tire, right rear tire, is even with ours, that's when we want to nudge him right here. Where we want to make contact is with our bumper and this area behind the rear wheel. So if we initiate right the maneuver at this point, as he's passing us, attempting to pass us and cut us off, as that wheel passes us, passes our front wheel, if we move our steering wheel to the left, and it does not have to be an extremely violent maneuver, simply nudge him, bump him, make contact with his bumper and the area just to the rear of his rear tire, between the bumper and the tire, bump that vehicle, tap him, and his vehicle is going to come around in front of us and spin. Lightly let off the accelerator, then go right on around him, continue on down the road. Okay, the greater your speed is, or at the time that this happens, the faster and more violent it's going to move him off the road. He has no control over it. Once he's bumped, he's going to spin. He cannot stop it. He cannot put the brakes on and avoid it. He cannot stop this at all. So it's a very, very easy maneuver to do.
Take a look at this fender. We've hit another car 3 times with this, and there's very little damage done to the automobile. Proves the point that you can hit another car and not damage yours.
What can happen if we were to hit this vehicle Okay, if we came in and hit him here with our front bumper, hit him in the door area or in front of the wheel, what would happen to him? We'd bump him, he's going to turn sideways. You're going to be having a vehicle sitting sideways directly in front of you. And he's going to come to a stop. He's got no control over it. He's just going to be sideways in front of you. You're going to probably wind up hitting him again, T-boning him right in the side, causing damage to your vehicle, slowing you down, or stopping it. Okay. So we want to make sure that once he starts by us, that his vehicle has passed us, rear wheel as it approaches our front bumper, that's when we want to come in.
To repel a motorcycle attack is rather interesting. Ever since driver education, we're trained to look in front of us and occasionally glance in the rearview mirror. In some countries, it's almost the opposite. You have to spend as much time looking behind you as you do looking in front of you. So to repel a motorcycle attack, the first issue has got nothing to do with driving. It's making sure that somebody is looking backwards and someone is watching every motorcycle that comes up close to the car. Now, let me show you graphically why moving away from a motorcycle attack is a good idea. Okay, the motorcycle, this is the rider, the driver, this is the rider. This is the automobile, back window. What will happen is that the rider will fire into the back window of the car, and the rounds will progressively go down the front of the car. Now, this is historical. This isn't projection. This is historical. If you look at cars that have been attacked by motorcycle riders, you will always see the rounds hit the back window first. To prevent this from happening, you have to make it as hard as possible for this rider in the back of the motorcycle to hit these targets. Remember that the principal's sitting right here. So, the thing that you have to do is move the car, spin the car to give this motorcycle rider the sharpest angle. And if you look at this being the back window again, this is becoming progressively harder for him to hit this window. Always remember that while all this is going on, that these two vehicles are moving. Even though this is spinning, it's moving in this direction at a much lower speed than this vehicle is moving in this direction. So along with a sharper angle, making it a lot harder for the rider on the motorcycle to hit the car, the variance in speed makes a big, big difference, because the velocity of the motorcycle is much higher than the velocity of the automobile. So the automobile is moving away from the motorcycle, but also at a much slower speed, so they tend to overrun each other. And of course, one of the biggest reason to spin your automobile is that the rider of this bike not only will have a sharper angle, and because of the difference in velocity, will have to move his body. His body will have to move to fire at the car, and he only has limited movement, so he will not be able to move his entire body. Also, it appears to this driver of the motorcycle that this car is going to come directly at him. Historically, they'll move the bike away. As a matter of fact, we stopped training with this. We stopped the training of doing this bootlegger turn close to the motorcycle in places like Colombia, where these guys would have paint guns and shoot in. The reason why we stopped it is, even though these two vehicles never hit each other, these poor guys were falling off the motorcycle all the time. Even though they knew what was going to happen, they still would turn the bike away from the car. Surviving attack from a moving vehicle is similar to a surviving attack from a motorcycle, but there are some very important differences. Surviving attack from a moving vehicle is where really your only protection is ramming the car or forcing the car off the road. But let me show you the basic difference between a motorcycle attack and a vehicle attack, moving vehicle attack, moving motorcycle attack. This is your automobile. And again, when you think about it, it's nothing but common sense. This is the bad guy. Okay. If he can come up on this side, he has two outlets to shoot at you from. Okay. If you force him to come up on this side, he now only has one outlet to shoot at you from. So you've cut his firepower down by 50%. So the first thing is if you see a bunch of bad guys and they're starting to try to overtake you, at least try to get them to come on this side. Okay. Now, if you can't do that, then the only solution to this is basically the same solution as the motorcycle, is to make the differences in velocity of these two vehicles as big as possible. Because the difference between the velocities in these two vehicles is going to make the difference between them being able to fire into the car accurately and not firing into the car accurately. And I mean something in the order of the difference of 200 and 300% different. Just changing the speeds 10 and 20 miles an hour makes a huge difference in the exposure of the automobile. So it's imperative that the velocities of these two vehicles are different, that this one is much slower than this one.
In a protective detail in a motorcade with 1, 2, 3 cars, the communications between the vehicles is extremely important. Practice different scenarios, how to maneuver in different what-if situations is extremely important. Radio communications between the vehicles, hand and arm signals, etc., between all of the detail. One of the primary exercises that we utilize in motorcades is called a drill 2. And the drill 2 consists of traveling down the road, and we note the principal vehicle and the follow car. Okay. We note an ambush situation here. sufficient distance to do the drill to. So the detail leader will call a drill to. At this point, the follow car will come around, positioning himself here. As his front right bumper is even with the rear left bumper of the principal's vehicle, lightly he honks the horn. As soon as the horn is sounded, the principal vehicle locks the brakes immediately. The follow car comes in, takes position in front, immediately shifts into reverse. This vehicle is already going backwards. They now go to the rear. The lead car now initiates J-turn, and as soon as the driver of the principal vehicles notices the J-turn initiated, he initiates simultaneously, and they do a reverse out. So they're both coming back and going in the opposite direction.
Armored vehicles offer you the best protection available at this point in time, but they're not meant for everybody and not meant for every place. High-risk environments, they're a must. Worst thing that can happen when you buy an armored car is that you become too complacent. And also that you don't know what it is that you purchased. Recently, and without doubt, one of the saddest situations that I think anybody in this industry ever came across is a gentleman named Nick Rowe, Colonel Nick Rowe. Nick Rowe was assassinated in the Philippines in a car that was, quote, armored. And what happened was a drive-by where they drove by in another car and they fired into Nick Rowe's automobile. There was a section of the automobile that was not armored. All the parts that were armored stopped the rounds. The part that was not armored, the bullet went right through and hit Nick Rowe. Now, I'm sure that Nick Rowe, Colonel Rowe, thought that that car was armored. And I'm sure he took it at the word that the car was completely armored. But it was not.
Tony, this is a sample of the ballistic armor, metallic armor that we use inside this door.
What's this weight?
About 11.5 pounds per square foot.
All these densers.
The large dents are from 7.62 millimeter rounds that did not penetrate, and the smaller rounds are from the 5.56, which is shot from the M16. The 7.62 would be from an M14 or an AK-47.
Does it bulge out in the back? Yeah, it does.
Just a few slight bulges. As you can see, it's taken multiple hits.
There's no spalling effect either, is there?
There's no. The ballistic integrity has not changed. You can see that it's exactly the same as a regular car, regular Chevrolet, but the difference is this vehicle is designed to protect your life. And we have to remember that an armored car is primarily designed to buy you about 30 seconds. We mentioned 30 seconds of time. We're talking about your life. This is what is the potential that lies out there. As you can see, this door has been shot, and if you read on the various bullet holes, there are different types of bullets. An assortment of projectiles have been tested into this door, which is a typical door that you would see in an armored vehicle. If we can just take a look at what goes behind the door, as you can see, we mentioned about the anti-spall shield. If you feel this glass, it is completely free of any cracks. Nothing has penetrated this transparent armor. with the 30 rounds that have been fired into that door, not one penetration. And this is what gives you the 30 seconds that we promise.
In a confrontation situation, we do not want to stop the vehicle. We want to keep the vehicle moving at all costs. To engage a moving target is very, very difficult at best. And getting more distance between us and the assailant is what we want to do. So we want to try and keep it moving. Just at 10 miles per hour, we're traveling approximately 15 feet per second. 15 feet, this can be the determining factor between a fatal round and a round bouncing off the side of the vehicle. So we want to keep this going at all times, keep the vehicle moving as long as you possibly can.
Okay, what we'd like to drastically show you is that 1 meter, this 12-gauge shotgun fired at 1 meter with regular bird shot, penetrated the door exactly as a slug would do, going through the outside skin, through the inside, into the interior, and up against the other side. Okay, we move over here and look at the difference in what 2 meters does. A total of 3 meters away from the vehicle with bird shot, did not even penetrate the outside skin of the door. Drastic realization, the distance, it can be a deciding factor in a battle. 3 meters of distance. It does not take very long for your vehicle to move 3 meters. The thing to do is get out of the area.
Since the time-distance relationship is so important, we ought to spend a few seconds here just taking a look at how we develop all these numbers. In our training programs, we spend a great deal of time going over these numbers. So let me just spend a little bit. We've got to remember again, I know I'm being repetitive, but it's time and distance. So let's pick the speed of 40 miles an hour. We want to convert that to feet per second because ambushes don't happen in miles, and ambushes don't happen in hours, they happen in feet and they happen in seconds. So how do we do that? It's really simple. To do an approximation, you multiply by 1.5. But in order to do it in your head, you don't have to multiply by 1.5. You take half of 40, which is 20, add it together, and it's 60. So at 40 miles an hour, you're traveling 60 feet per second. If we took 30 miles an hour, and I wanted to convert that to feet per second, half of 30 is 15, and that's 45, so we're traveling 45 feet per second. And 20 miles an hour, half of 20 is 10, so that's 30, and we're traveling 30 feet per second. Now, how can we put this to use? If I'm going 30 miles an hour, and something happens roughly 90 feet in front of me, do I have time to stop? Do I have time to turn around? Do I have time to do the J-turn? Do I have time to do the bootlegger turn? Or should I realize that I can't do any of these things and I don't have to drive through them? And if you just quick arithmetic, if they're 90 feet away from us, that tells us that we have to stop in 2 seconds. We have 2 seconds to stop the car. If we're going 30 miles an hour, 45 feet a second, and they're 90 feet in front of us, we got 2 seconds to stop the car. It takes you half a second to get your foot from the gas pedal to the brake pedal. So now we really don't have 90 feet to stop the car. We have less. But the point is, you can do that. You could stop the car. Can you stop the car so you're far enough away from them so if they have high-powered weapons, they can get to you? Yes. So, again, it can't be stressed enough that you have to know this time-distance relationship, and if you don't know it, you're really guessing at everything that you're doing, especially when it comes to the moment that you're going to make the decision to do one of these things that are taught in this program. If you can be the greatest person in the world when it comes to a J-turn, but if you don't give yourself enough time and enough distance to do it, it doesn't mean anything. The driving system includes the man, the machine, and the environment. We make sure that our car's running. We check tire pressures. We make sure it's in good working order. We've got to do the same thing with our bodies. Our bodies have to be in good working order. They cannot be impaired by alcohol or by drugs. If you spend a couple of hours the night before a job sitting in a bar, that is not only irresponsible, it's unprofessional, and it could be fatal. Probably the best story, and it's an old one, is of a gentleman in the Middle East who went to our program and thought the program was totally useless. This guy was not only a bad driver, he had a terrible attitude. And one morning he goes driving around, going to work, he drives around a corner, and lo and behold, there they are. And he says to me, afterwards, as I drove through it, I looked at it and said, oh my God, this is going to happen. And he put the car in reverse, and he did what's called a J-turn. He backed up, spun the car 180 degrees. In this particular country, they have open sewers. They call them jubes, so that the sidewalk is, the street rather, is level. Then there's a ditch on both sides of the street. Well, this guy totally messes it up and drives his car right into one of the jubes, and puts the car into drive and just drives out of the tube and tears off, I think, a front wheel and just keeps on driving. Took about 10 rounds in the car, about 5 of them hit the back windshield. And he drove off. And afterwards, when he contacted me, he said, you know, I forgot everything that you taught me, except for one thing. And this is what we like to preach to everybody, is never give up. And you don't have to be the greatest driver in the world. As long as you can get the car pointed in the other direction and drive off into the sunset, that's all that counts. And that's what this guy said. He said he knew he was terrible. As he was spinning the car, he remembered all the things he was supposed to do, and kind of like wish he paid attention more. But he did everything wrong and still escaped. So if you can do some of these things that we will show and do them, let's say 75% correct, your chances of survival is still very high. And this guy is proof of it, because this guy was terrible.